Welcome to the Conservation Board meeting of April 8th, 2026. I'd invite everyone to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is your pleasure on the minutes of March 25th, 2026?
Accept the minutes.
I'm second. Oh,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? And advisory reports, Delandro Farms subdivision.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This is a three-lot subdivision that the planning board has referred for your advisory comments. The tract is located on Quogue River Road in the hamlet of East Quogue. There are several recommended advisory comments. The first is references the clearing map of Delandro Farms survey as prepared by Kenneth Beckman dated March 18, 2026, and it indicates that such plat is generally consistent with the July 26, 2023 Conservation Board Advisory Report recommendations for conservation easement protection of naturally vegetated buffers and open space. And second, the referenced map needs to be revised in order to call for the abandonment of the dirt driveway within the proposed westerly 50-foot buffer, as well as the call for reduction of the 8 feet high deer fence lines, both located within the central part of proposed Lot 1 to a maximum fence height of 6 feet. Thirdly, the existing bamboo and abutting non-compliant deer fence need to be removed within the central portion of the planned northerly buffer, followed by native revegetation. And lastly, this section of Quogue River Road would yet benefit greatly from required native street trees.
Motion to send those comments to the planning board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? For the ZBA, Alex Demiron.
This is a pending application for that seeks relief for a planned two-story addition at a residence that's located at 31 Rampasture Road in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. The recommended advisory comments are as follows. One, based upon an Environment Division field assessment that was completed on April 1, 2026, the wetlands on the subject property that are associated with Smith Creek have excess amounts of litter and refuse within the bounds of the required covenanted wetland preservation area, naturally vegetated wetland non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer. Accordingly, all debris and waste material needs to be hand removed from the bounds of the wetlands and buffer and properly disposed of. And second, the planned residential second-story addition as the subject of the pending variance application will need to be further reviewed by filing a lot inspection application requesting a wetland letter of non-jurisdiction pursuant to section 325-4B10, which negates the need for a town wetland permit if the activities constitute the construction of a second-story addition to an existing residence which was built prior to August 13, 1993, and that's provided that such dwelling is equipped with a septic system that meets current health department standards and does not require the demolition and rebuilding of the residence to support the second story, and provided further that no activities related to the construction take place within wetlands, and that a project limiting fence be installed to contain site disturbances recommended by the approving authority in the letter of non-jurisdiction. Thirdly, the recently constructed southerly second floor addition was authorized by Conservation Board permit in accordance with Wetlands Permit CB 25003. Such permit authorized the septic system upgrade and other various outdoor residential improvements. Wetlands Permit CB 25003 was closed out by issuance of a certificate of wetland compliance on July 28, 2025. Fourth, the existing natural vegetation within the bounds of the covenanted wetland buffer was observed as being top cut without authorization upon inspection for certificate of wetland compliance application on March 14, 2025. As such, all cutting of existing wetland buffer vegetation needs to be discontinued, with the area left to regenerate through natural vegetative succession in order to preserve and enhance the buffer's ecological functions and benefits.
Move to send those comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? From the Board of Trustees, Kathleen Hurwitz, RT.
This advisory referral relates to a general permit application the trustees received, which seeks approval to reconstruct and heighten the bulkhead at 43 Romana Drive in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. There are several recommended advisory comments. The first indicates that based upon a March 25, 2026 Environment Division field assessment, the fixed pier and steps at the subject property were recently partially replaced with non-compliant treated lumber, specifically Culpeper number 2 MCA as indicated on the lumber stamps or tags. Such lumber needs to be removed and replaced with light penetrable deck material and/or approved non-treated lumber, inclusive framework deck boards and steps. Second, the existing failing bulkhead contains discharge pipes directed southeast into Shinnecock Bay. These discharge pipes, whether for stormwater management or roof runoff, should be removed and should not be included as part of future bulkhead reconstruction. Thirdly, the Conservation Board recommends that the Board of Trustees no longer require rock or bare sand buffers following the construction or reconstruction of a bulkhead. Rather, covenanted naturally vegetated non-disturbance, non-fertilization wetland buffers need to be requested with reclamation accomplished using seaside suitable native plants. These requested restored buffers would help offset the loss of wildlife habitat as a consequence of bulkhead construction, while also improving surface water quality by filtering out upland pollutants such as lawn chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers that contribute to declining bay health. 4, there is concern regarding the harmful and damaging ecological impacts that bulkheads can have on the bay bottom, as well as the resultant ecosystem shift from intertidal to subtidal conditions as a consequence of greater wave energy deflection off higher bulkheads and result in bulkhead toe scouring. For that reason, the proposed bulkhead reconstruction should be completed without increasing bulkhead crown heights above the level of the adjacent bulkheads. 5, as permitting an increase in bulkhead crown heights can result in increased toe scour and alteration of bay bottom contours and elevations. The applicant needs to demonstrate that the proposed heightening of the new bulkhead to the degree envisioned is necessary, and that there is little or no potential for result in increased wave attack and scour on proximate properties having lower bulkheads due to deflected wave energy. 6, any authorization of bulkhead reconstruction should be conditioned upon prohibition of installation of geese and bird deterrent lines, fences, or other mechanisms that discourage or interfere with bay-dependent bird species. Such conditions should be included in the required 15 feet wide trustee easement language as part of the general permit. 7, the general permit needs to be conditioned upon removal and replacement of any lawn and non-native vegetation with indigenous vegetative cover. And that, of course, is within the bounds of any required trustee easement landward of the bulkhead. And lastly, while it's acknowledged that there are few practicable alternatives when wetland permits for replacement bulkheads being sought along a continuum of existing vertical bulkheads fronting bay surface waters, reclamation of natural and unarmored shorelines should be explored wherever practicable.
Motion to send those comments to the Board of Trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administrative wetland permits are in your packets. Carrying on the first one, it looks like there's a typo on the project location. I think it should be East Quogue.
Which one are you looking at?
The 23 Dune Road, ADL 23 LLC. It should be East Quogue.
East Hampton.
This is the administrative.
Oh, it's in the administrative.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is, definitely is a mistake. East Quad.
Resolution of conditional approval, A019131, the Patricia Lynn Prue Revocable Trust. The applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to adjourn to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A025009, Samuel Deskovich as trustees of the Peter Deskovich Irrevocable Trust. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Samuel Deskovich as trustee of the Peter Deskovich Irrevocable Trust for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A025011, 41 Tarpon Road LLC. The applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A025021, Mark Charbonneau and Donna Charbonneau. Applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A025054, Charlie Denby and Elizabeth Velton. Applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A025062, Donovan Moore and Ann Moore. Applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
To postpone to that date.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A025068, Orkin Gonal. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Orkin Gonal for the proposed project for the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Preliminary review secret determination, A024060, Carter Simpson and Sloan Simpson. Applicant requests postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025048, Diane Warrenes, applicant request postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025057, Jarvis Family Trust, applicant request postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025069, Timmy Hampton LLC.
Good evening again, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This application relates to an existing residentially developed waterfront property that's encumbered by covenants required as per a prior Conservation Board permit establishing a wetland preservation area as well as 75-foot wide naturally vegetated wetland, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated April 6, 2026. The application has been filed because the landowner is seeking this board's approval to redevelop the property. The existing residence would be demolished and reconstructed. Various decks, steps, and walks would also be removed, as well as existing gravel parking. The current sanitary system would be abandoned. The new dwelling, which would be built, would be FEMA compliant and would contain various decks and porches, would be equipped with a nitrogen reducing IAOWTS. Plans call for reconfiguring the existing pervious drive. And there was also utility work that's needed, inclusive of removal and relocation of existing gas and electric lines. Based upon recent inspections of the property, the existing scenic easement and covenanted wetland buffer is wholly compliant in that it's naturally vegetated as a consequence of preservation of pre-existing native cover, as well as supplemental planting of indigenous seaside suitable plants. I had noted that a kayak rack had been placed within the bounds of the buffer without any authorization and in a manner contrary to the terms and conditions of the prior Conservation Board permit and the recorded covenant. Upon advisement to the applicant has agreed to remove that existing kayak rack. Property benefits from a large five-finger dock, so there's certainly sufficient amenities at the side for boating and launching a kayak without the need for a separate kayak rack. This is a project that therefore is compliant with the wetland permit issuance standards with regards to the required wetland building setbacks and buffers. It is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, recommending that the public hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, in the, it should be 66 Peconic, not 68 Peconic. I think the agenda has 68 Peconic.
Yes, so does the resolution.
It
So it should
it
be,
is at 68, oh,
Oh,
66.
Advisory
66.
report at 66,
Okay.
yeah.
just
all right.
to clarify.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, it
66.
is, that-
Good eye, Kelly.
No, Karina noticed that.
Good eye, Karina.
A026012, the Sandra R. Meyer Revocable Trust. Half year request postponement to April 22nd, 2026.
Move to postpone to that date.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution to issue modifications, CB 25049, Eric Grave and Margaret Grave.
So wetland permit modification application relates to a bulkheaded residentially developed waterfront property in Shinnecock Hills. The property has recent history in that a wetland permit was issued on November 21st, 2025, in order to elevate the existing dwelling so that it's FEMA compliant, to construct an addition to the dwelling, to reconfigure the utility lines, to elevate, and if deemed necessary, rebuild the deck in kind and in place, and also to abandon the existing non-conforming sanitary system and install a nitrogen-reducing IAOWTS. The original plans that this board approved called for, again, retention and elevation of the existing home. The applicant has since decided to demolish and reconstruct the home in the same footprint. No other aspect of the previously approved improvements at the property have changed, and the permit that was issued was conditioned upon the establishment of a 20-foot wide naturally vegetated wetland, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer along the bulkhead. The required covenant has been filed, and the applicant is yet amenable to establishing that buffer. So although the existing home will be demolished and replaced with a new home, the new home will have the same square footage, will have the same footprint. So that change in the project is unlikely to result in any new or adverse wetland impacts. As such, the resolution before you is to approve the requested modifications to the existing wetland permit so that the applicant can go forward with filing for a building permit.
One quick question. With the much bigger construction work that will happen because they're demolishing and replacing, do you need any specific protections, covenants in terms of the construction itself?
Well, we had already, as indicated, required a covenant to buffer along the waterfront. That is yet sufficient to offset the impacts of the new construction. Obviously, the perimeter of the work area will have to be secured by installation of siltation fences. So,
And that was already
having
required?
been to the property several times, as the existing dwelling is a small ranch, not anticipating any significant issues that would warrant the expansion of the existing covenanted buffer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to issue the modification.
Second.
Resolved that a wetlands permit modification be issued to Eric Grave and Margaret Grave for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution to renotice public hearing, A025047, Adios Holding LLC.
Motion to Reschedule a public hearing for May 27, 2026.
Second.
Resolve that the Town Conservation Board hereby reschedules the public hearing to May 27th, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next is the public hearings, and they will begin at 7 o'clock in 3 minutes.
I'm gonna step out for a second.
The applicant also owns 68, and I think he put 68 down as his address for 66. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that's family that lives there. Can I add to the, the more lives that we can have checking these things together. So I don't like to make any reports. Has that been stamped in?
These are just enlargements of what's in the report.
Thank you.
And it's 7 o'clock, so we can begin. Herm, you ready? Ready. Public hearings, A 025019, Stephen Tempesta and Jennifer Tempesta.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Aram Tertunian, First Coastal, West Hampton Beach, New York, on behalf of the applicant. Joined this evening by Ms. Jennifer Tempesta, who is the applicant, along with her husband, Stephen, and Kyle Hubbard from my office. I thought it might be a good idea just to go do a quick review of where we are and how we got here. So in April of last year, we submitted an application to the board to do a revetment on this property. In October, or actually in November, we had our first public hearing, and the board requested us to do and to investigate some issues and to validate certain positions we had made to the board. We've done that work, and that was presented last week. We submitted our report from the coastal engineer. It's a hydraulic analysis, which I'm going to walk you through tonight. And we also provided some review of various alternatives pursuant to 325.9 as to different ways to control erosion on this site. So I think it's important to understand where we are first geographically and what is the erosion that we're attempting to control.
So this area is immediately south of Wooley's Pond Inlet. Sand in this area flows from north to south. The inlet itself intercepts that sand, and so what we call the areas that are south of the inlet downdrift. Just like downstream, it's called downdrift. And what we have here is, we call a sediment shadow or a negative sediment budget. Sand that would naturally be moving along the beach is intercepted at the inlet, and then the waves continue to move the sand that's south of the inlet, causing erosion. Now, periodically, this inlet is dredged by Suffolk County DPW for navigational purposes. And that sand is placed immediately. So this is Wooley's Pond Inlet right here. You can see it here. That sand is actually placed in this area that we're talking about. Now, one of the things that we observed was an extraordinarily high rate of erosion here. And we have previously submitted this map, and that information is replicated here as well, that's in your report. And in 22, Suffolk County pumps sand out of the inlet. Now, they do this for navigation purposes, not for beach restoration purposes. So the amount of sand they pump is not related to how much gets trapped, it's related to how much they need to move to make a navigation channel. So there's always more sand coming in than just the navigation channel. So they pumped the sand around, and they created a beach almost 100 feet wide. Within 2 years, that beach was gone. The erosion rate is literally over 40 feet a year. So when I was last here, I said, I was asked by the board to examine the hydraulics of this inlet and try to explain two things. Why is this area eroding so quickly? And why is this area here apparently stable? So I'm going to pull out a copy of this report, which I believe all of you have. I think that the results of this are significant and instructive. So, first of all, just to explain who wrote this report. This report is written by a firm in Naples, Florida called Humiston and Moore. They are coastal engineers, and they specialize in numerical modeling of structures and inlets. That's what they do. That's their entire business. The people who did this is a gentleman named Mark Damon, who is extremely experienced, and as you read through this report, it's highly technical, but I think I can break it down in a way that's accessible to everybody. Essentially, what they do is they create a grid of the entire area. And if you flip to this part, this is page 4. Gotta put my glasses on. Figure 3. This is a bathymetric chart.
Hold on one second, okay?
We don't have that.
We have to pass these out.
This is just a, this is a two-page letter.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
There should be several copies.
In the file, right?
I got them.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I ain't distribution. Okay. Got 3 there. Here you go.
Do you mind running back
Yeah.
20 seconds?
Great.
All right. Actually, go to figure 5. I think that's a better place to start.
Figure it out.
It looks like this.
Got it. Got it.
All right, so what they do is they take a grid of this entire area. And then they take wave rows from Gabreski Airport. And what this does is gives them the ability to predict waves, because waves are formed by wind blowing over water. So the direction of the wind and the intensity of the wind over time is what determines the height of the wave. The height of the wave and the angle that the wave strikes the shoreline is what determines the height of the wave, and the angle that the wave strikes the shoreline determines how much sediment is moved. So a bigger wave at a sharper angle moves more sand than a smaller wave on a 90-degree angle.
So he doesn't actually have to come up here personally and take a look at the...
No, it's all numerical modeling. So that's how the grid is set. Then what they do is they run a model called the CMS wave, which is a model developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's in use throughout the country, in fact, throughout the world, to do exactly this type of modeling. And when they did that, so just a quick review. This is looking at shoreline change. That's all this is. High erosion, stability. See how all the lines come together right there? I'm sorry to back you up, but back you up to figure. Okay, I'll back you up. Apologize, I lost my place.
Figure 2?
Yeah. Figure 2. So the object of figure 2, I'll stand over here. The object of figure 2 was just to look at the shoreline and say, where has that shoreline been? And it shows you that there's a high degree of erosion immediately adjacent to the inlet. And then as you move a distance down, all those shorelines intersect in that yellow dotted area. So that's what's actually occurred over the time period that's evaluated in the photo, which is from 2004
Oh, I see.
to the present. So high erosion to the north, stability to the south, actual conditions. So then the object was, how'd that happen? Why is it happening? What's going on here?
Right.
So they do the model that we talked about, and they generate this, all right? So what's happening here is they're looking at sediment transport potential. So what is the sediment transport potential in each one of these cells along here? Because everything, it's like, think of it like pixels on a TV. These are all individual pixels, and each one of them has a value associated with it. And what they determined was that right in this area, right in here, there's a very high potential for sediment transport, because not just the height of the wave, but the orientation of the shoreline. So this shoreline is not straight. Karina, could I ask you to pull up an aerial photo, please? And if you would please zoom out. So you can see, and yeah, pull it down just a tad, please. Yeah. You can see that the end of East Beach Drive actually sticks out into Peconic Bay. But I've looked at the aerial photos going back to 1930, that shoreline was relatively straight. What's happened is because the northern tip of East Beach Drive has been stabilized, it stayed in place. And as the area to the south began to erode, the shoreline orientation changed. It changed 38 degrees from what it was originally. And that change in orientation is driving high sediment transport because of the angle at which the waves are striking the shoreline. But as the shoreline reorients to a straight line, the sediment potential decreases, and it decreases exactly in the area where we see stability. So what this tells us about this unique situation is that there are unique and special forces acting on the shoreline that we don't see in other places. And And that is driving a situation where 100 feet of beach can disappear in less than 3 years. So what do we do? So the question is, what do we do? Now, we came to you with a request to build a rock revetment.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Certainly.
As I think Jennifer knows, we visited the property today, and the two properties, I guess, north, are very heavily bulkheaded. Could this instability be possibly attributable to the fact that there are two massive bulkheads in the adjoining properties north?
My opinion is that that's contributory, but it's not the driving mechanism. So beaches are like bank accounts. The more sand, the better. So if you have an abundant sand supply coming down the beach, you do really well. But if something interrupts that sand supply or something impounds that sand supply, you do less well. In this particular case, the inlet acts as a complete literal block, unless the sand is mechanically dredged around through bypassing.
Okay, but the bulkheads, the existing bulkheads that predate all of this, are a contributory factor.
I believe, because they impound sediment. But the amount of sediment behind those bulkheads is extremely small in comparison to the 100-foot beach that was put there and eroded in 2.5 years.
Thank you.
So what did we do since we last spoke, and what alternatives did we evaluate? So we were also simultaneously applying to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So we have to balance what this board is asking us to do with what that agency is asking us to do. And that's what we're trying to do right now. One of the things that they...
Can I ask you a question on that? You have presented us with copious information on this application and on others. Have you also submitted that much to the DEC?
Actually, our response to the request is going to be in the mail maybe Friday, but it's going to be the same information. Because they've asked us to look at a number of things. I'll describe them. The first thing they asked us to do was to move the structure as far landward as possible. So if you recall, there's two parts to this application. It's not just a rock revetment. We're taking an existing house and we're relocating that house as far landward as possible. Everything is back designed to the area necessary for the innovative alternative wastewater system. This and zoning are what drives the setback from the front yard. There's a physical requirement, how many square feet you need to build one of these systems. Then the house is being reconstructed and a deck is being reconstructed on the seaward side. But in all cases, everything's moving landward. What we did was we moved the revetment so it's 10 feet from the seaward edge of the proposed deck. And we believe that's as close as you really want to be, because if you've ever been on the beach when the waves are hitting, it's not just, they don't just stop like a wall. You get spray and sand and other things spilling over. So you need a buffer behind that. And plus, revetments over time do need maintenance, and you have to be able to access it on all sides so that you can reset rocks and things like that. The second thing they asked us to do was to taper the two ends, which we have done. And so we have revised plans. I believe they've been submitted. If not, they will be, where we are tapering the north and the south end of the revetment. And the purpose of that is to reduce the size of it and therefore reduce any potential impacts associated with it. The third thing they asked us to do was to build a dune on the landward side. So on the top and landward of the revetment, they asked us to place sand and build a dune, and we've agreed to do that. We had originally considered placing sand on the seaward face of the rock, but as a practical matter, it will never stay there. And therefore, we've eliminated that, and the state has agreed to that. They've also asked us to evaluate what are called nature-based solutions. So what does that mean? A nature-based solution is, just like it sounds, something you find in nature. In other words, beach restoration, dune restoration, vegetative plantings. These are nature-based solutions. Under a new state law that was adopted in January, they are required to make us evaluate whether or not this site can be stabilized with nature-based solutions. And we have to demonstrate that either it can or it can't. And if it cannot be, then we have to incorporate nature-based solutions to the maximum extent possible. That's literally what the law says. So that's what we've done here, because what we've demonstrated is 44 feet per year of erosion of beach restoration that covered not just one 60-foot property, but covered hundreds of feet. It didn't work. It's never worked. Every time that they've done, the sand deposition here from the dredging, within several years, the shoreline erodes back to or further back than before. So that, as a nature-based solution, is not functioning here. And the reason I think it's not functioning is because of this shoreline orientation. The fact that the wave energy here is just different.
You mentioned that, based on your research, that piece of land has curved 38% more?
38 degrees, yeah.
38 degrees, okay. How does that, how do you move land 38 degrees?
This didn't move, this did, because this is sand. This is the original position. And the shoreline, could you zoom out just a tad more, please? So I want to see the northern shoreline. If you just draw a line from there, straight down, it more or less intersects where the end of East Beach Drive is now. And that area was stabilized, and you can see the tax lot. See the tax lot outlines? That's where the property was in 1965, when all of these tax maps are digitized by the county. Please zoom in, Karina.
What about the point? The top point?
Yeah, see, on the top point, you can see the tax map lines line up pretty much with where it is now, but everything south of that, there's half the lot is missing.
Was that end lot built upon, and you said you went back to 1938?
30, yeah. There was nothing there in 1930. I don't think, that wasn't built till the 60s.
Okay.
So just to finish with the DEC, your position is there's no nature-based solutions that are applicable here?
Correct. And so what we did was incorporate nature-based solutions to the maximum extent practicable. In other words, the county's going to keep dredging this inlet, and they're going to need a place to put the sand. And we're perfectly happy to let them continue to do that. And in fact, that's going to buy some benefit for a couple of years. But then shortly thereafter, shortly thereafter, we'll be right back to where we are now. And one of the issues with the county dredging is that they only have 84 dredge days a year because of environmental windows. And they have something like 300 dredge projects. So Wooley's Pond has to be, the channel here has to become practically unnavigable before they come in and dredge it. It's not like they're coming every 3 years on a schedule. They're coming when they have the time and the channel is clogged enough. So that's not something that you can rely upon, like, well, we're getting sand every 3 years, so beach restoration is going to be fine. That doesn't work. So as I said, we've incorporated tapering, locating as far landward, tapering, and dune on top. Really, that's what we have to say. We've looked at this, as you can see, this is not a casual evaluation. A lot of time and effort has gone into this, and You know, the fact that what we see actually occurring on the ground can be explained quite well in a numerical model gives me a great deal of comfort. I think the other thing that's really important is this board and the neighbors and I and the Tempestas are worried about adverse impacts on neighbors. Why wouldn't we be? Okay? That's a reasonable and responsible position. But the fact of the matter is, this area downdrift is stable and has been for over 20 years. And the explanation of why it's stable is what I've explained. That we're talking about a 60-foot piece of property here, couldn't possibly have an adverse impact all the way down here. It's just not possible for something 60 feet wide to have an impact 500 feet away. That's not the way, you know, these projects function. And the fact that, at least for part of the time, if not a lot of the time, there will be a beach in front of this every time the county places sand.
So you're saying there'll be no downdrift impact? Is that your assertion?
If you read in this report by Humiston and Moore, they do an evaluation based upon work done by Walton and Sensabaugh. I know I'm saying word salad to you guys, but in our world, those things, they mean something. Walton and Sensabaugh did an evaluation of, after a hurricane, of looking at seawalls. And what they found was when a seawall was fully, and these are seawalls, not rock revetments that are sloping, these are vertical seawalls. When a storm surge, like a hurricane surge, strikes a seawall, it will cause erosion on either end, what we call the end effects. And the amount of that they discovered was 10% of the length of the wall. So in this case, you're looking at a 60-foot wall. So the maximum amount of end effect is 10 feet, is 6 feet, sorry, 10%. What we've done is reduce that effect by tapering the revetment as we get to the property line. So whatever impact there's going to be on the end effect is going to be a lot less than 6 feet. And the area seaward of that, for at least some of the time, will have a beach in front of it, and there will be zero impact. So when we look at maximum potential, we're looking at 3 feet of storm surge, 3 and 4 foot waves striking this thing for several days. We're not talking about you put it in and tomorrow erosion starts occurring. The only time that you can have end effects on a structure is when that structure is fully involved with wave action.
Could I go back to your second drawing up there? The orange arrows. Now, you were saying that there's a surge there that creates that erosion. How far out from the shoreline is that action occurring?
This is, although it shows it in the water, it's intended to show it right along. It's basically occurring right at the shoreline.
So theoretically, if you were to put a vertical object there at the inlet, right there, seaward, would you push that movement out further where it would not be eroding the beach?
Unfortunately, no. What happens when you extend, especially in this situation because of the shoreline orientation, when you extend this shoreline out, a structure out, you're causing the waves to break out here further, and actually you will increase the amount of energy in this area. There's something called a back eddy current. If you've ever driven in a car and put your hand out the window and the hairs on the back of your hand will prick up, that's because the wind goes around and then circles. Water is a fluid, just like wind. So when it comes down, it hits that and it circles. So, and that type, and for that reason, the state has basically said, we're not going to permit any new shore perpendicular structures.
So that would include a jetty.
Yeah. You can rebuild jetties that exist, but building a new one, I haven't seen a new one built in my career.
So, just so that I'm on the same page. So if your client didn't build the revetment, what would happen?
Well, the shoreline is going to continue to erode. I don't think it's going to
Right.
erode at 44 feet per year, but it's already, I mean, as you'll see, we have a video of just storms from this past winter, which we were blessed that the bay was frozen for half the winter when we had the biggest storms, because frozen beaches don't erode. So it will erode. There's an existing sanitary system located, basically 2 feet from high water. That will be uncovered and destroyed, and the contents will spill into the bay. And eventually, the house will be undermined. It's not a pile foundation house. It's a block foundation, and it'll fail.
And all of that will be safeguarded with the revetment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pilings? I thought you said, I was looking.
The new house will be on pilings.
Okay.
The existing structure is on a block foundation. I mean, these were cottages built, 50 years ago.
And I know that we're focusing on the revetment right now, but there is also an application for expanding the size of the house, correct?
Yeah,
I don't think we have to talk about it now, because I don't want to distract us, but I just want to make a note that it's out there.
The volume of the house is increasing because there's 2 stories, but the footprint is very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was wondering about the cinder block that's there now. Was that the original, do you know off the top? You don't know?
I don't know. I didn't see anything in the building department file to indicate it was not original.
So we're looking for alternatives, no?
Thank you. I am sure I'll have some questions later.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps Ms. Tempesta would have the opportunity to present something, or would you like Marty to go first?
It doesn't matter. Is it,
She has a PowerPoint that she'd like to share.
okay?
Whichever order you prefer is fine with me, but I would like to present a bit, if that's okay with you.
Probably now would be better. This way Marty may have a reaction to it.
So you may remember me from last time. I'm Jennifer Tempesta, one of the owners of 35 East Beach Drive. My husband is typically here with me, but he's actually in Florida with our kids. It's spring break, and I came up here to be with you all. So I hope that we can make some progress here today. I do have a short PowerPoint. You may recall that last time we met, I presented a PowerPoint as well, and I really want to do it to show you some photos so that you could see what it's like to be at our property. Thank you for making a site visit today. I will say that was on a calm day during low tide, so please keep that in mind. I have a video actually of the blizzard that happened earlier this winter. I would invite you to join me for a storm. Really, you'd be welcome, because I really want you to understand what it's like when there is a weather event to be in our home so close to the water. If you could go to the next slide. So I mentioned a couple of these points before, but one thing that I took away from the last hearing was that the board would like to see evidence to support that the soft solutions are not going to work here, and evidence to support that what we are asking to do here is the alternative that is necessary and is not going to adversely affect our neighbors. So we took that mission very seriously over the past few months, and we hired engineers. This engineering analysis has been completed. Aram has summarized it, but please do take the time to read it. It's not too long, but it does take some time and effort, I think, to get through it. We took time and effort with that company to make sure that they were looking at our home, and they agreed that we are in a very unique situation where our property is situated. So that's one of the takeaways for us, that one thing to think about here is generalities about erosion and about revetments need to be pushed aside to make sure that we are considering the specific facts presented here. I'll just give you a little background about myself that's not totally relevant here, but I think it's important. I'm an attorney, and in my analysis at work, I always look for evidence. And to the extent that people make conclusory statements that are not supported by evidence, I reject those. And judges and courts that I practiced before regularly reject those. I would ask you to try and be in that same position and ask yourself if the individuals opposing our application have presented you with any evidence that is applicable to the specific facts that are presented by our property. So hopefully that's helpful. If we look to the next slide, as I said, we've been in this community for years. We did see the dredging that occurred in 2022, which was really wonderful. And I have a slide just to sort of remind everyone what that looked like. But you'll see in some slides that at high tide or during a storm, the water of Peconic Bay is up to our deck. And our home and the septic system, as Aaron pointed out, and I'll show you a photo of it because it's exposed. You could see the septic system if you walk in the back of our home. We are trying to fix these things to use an environmentally sound solution to replace the septic, to make the home compliant with really whatever is appropriate in our situation, including the pilings that Marty has asked for. So we are trying to work with the town, work within the environmental constraints that are appropriate to come up with a solution that works for everyone. If you could go to the next slide. There are a lot of words on this slide, but I think really the takeaway here is that the engineering analysis that was completed demonstrates that we are in a very unique position. That the way that the erosion is occurring is because of this odd shoreline that we have based on the inlet that is so close to our home. So please do review that report. If you go to the next slide, this is September 2022. This was right after the dredging, approximately almost 100 feet of beach. The next slide, please. This was during the blizzard in February, and this is a video. So, you know, the water obviously is coming up to the deck. I think that tree, when I was watching this myself, I thought the tree was going to fall over. You know, it's an emotional subject for our family. We really want to protect this property. And seeing this happening so close to where we live, where my children live, it's disturbing. And the idea that we could just dump some sand and have that fix the problem, it just doesn't pass any sort of credible test. So, you know, I think this demonstrates that the water really is at the edge of our deck during these types of storms. And this isn't just the blizzard. This has happened with other storms as well, but it's getting worse. I think that was one of the questions raised at the last hearing. Has the erosion stopped? How much further is the erosion going to go? Well, it's continuing. If you go to the next slide. I just have a couple of additional slides to show. Now it's low tide in these slides. This tree, it's a beloved tree. During lunchtime, it gives perfect shade. There were still leaves growing on it last summer. This tree is going to fall over. It's just a question of when. And it's very sad, and it can't be the intention of the laws to just let our trees and other, you know, greenery just wash away. That doesn't make sense. How is that good for the environment? Going to the next slide. There's actually a tree. This is between us and our neighbors, the Gallaghers. These are just falling over, these small little trees. Again, it cannot really be the intent of the laws. How is it okay to just permit our property to wash away like that? And then I think the next one is the last slide. That area, the circular area, that's our septic system. It's exposed. I think it's holding, thank goodness. But, we want to proactively make sure that it does not become a problem and replace that with a new environmentally sound system that is landward, as close to the street as we are permitted to put it. And we have plans to do that, as Aram indicated. I think that's the last slide. I would welcome any questions from the board. This is not a request we've taken lightly. As Aram said, we are willing to make changes, to make modifications to the plans, and we have done that. And we do feel that this is the most appropriate solution. We strongly believe, based on the evidence that we have from the engineering consultants, that it will not harm our neighbors. We do not want to harm our neighbors. We are very proud members of the community, and we have not seen evidence that it will. And I would ask that someone try to provide us with actual evidence that in this specific factual situation, that this modest revetment will harm anyone nearby.
Is the tree right next to the deck? How close is it to the deck?
Yeah, it's like a foot off of the deck. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I also had an opportunity, as the landowner knows, to revisit the property around noon today to assess the current conditions at the site at apparent low tide. This is obviously an application that is seeking considerable relief from the wetland permit issuance standards. As everyone on the board and in the audience knows, the goals of the town wetland law for existing developed properties is to go forward with designs that site the house at a minimum of 100 feet landward of wetlands, inclusive of any decks and other improvements, and that the impacts of the project be mitigated by establishment of a buffer. The minimum buffer that's recommended is 75 feet. So, it's quite obvious that this is a property that's very constrained, both due to its vulnerability to flooding and erosion, and also because of the size of the lot and the pre-existing location of the current one-story ranch. In his presentation, the applicant had noted that as part of the review of the pending state tidal wetlands permit application before the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, that the DEC had recommended that the applicant and the landowner look to site the new home as far landward as possible. Obviously, that's logical in light of the ongoing erosion threats and vulnerability to flooding and the inability to meet the required wetland building and buffer setbacks either at the state level or at the local level. While the applicant has indicated that the setback of the new home from the wetlands or high water would be maximized, the ability to shift the home further landward is inhibited somewhat by the new home design. As indicated by my preliminary advisory report that's dated September 22nd, 2025. Right now, the property is characterized by a one-story ranch. The new home would be a two-story residence. It would be FEMA compliant. In fact, it would exceed FEMA requirements in that, consistent with my early recommendations, it would be installed on pilings. However, the footprint of the new home would be larger than the existing footprint. As indicated by my advisory report, the existing one-story home has a footprint of approximately 1,354 square feet. The new home, which would now have both one-story and second-story living space, would have a footprint about 300 square feet in area larger, as the new home would have a footprint of 1,674 square feet. The existing home, of course, benefits by a seaside deck. The new home would benefit by a seaside deck as well. The current deck footprint is approximately 517 square feet, and the new deck would take in 810 square feet, about 300 square feet larger. So the footprints of both the new home and the new deck would be about 300 square feet larger for each of those structures. And while the additional deck space is somewhat achieved by lengthening the deck, the expansion of the existing house footprint on the landward side of the existing house footprint is inhibiting the ability to move the new home further landward. If you look at the applicant's survey, as prepared by Lester Holden, dated January 28, 2025, with the latest revision date of March 19, 2025, you'll see that the new house footprint is overlaid over the existing house footprint. And you'll see that the new house plans call for significant expansion further landward. In light of the sites of vulnerability to erosion and flooding, and in light of the inability.
Hold on, we're
Yes.
not understanding here, because Aram said the footprint was about the same, and
It's
you're
not.
saying that the footprint is about 20% plus more.
I said about 300 square feet, and that's based upon the information provided by the applicant and provided by the surveyor, and we have not yet received a revised survey, so I assume the new home would yet be consistent with this
Okay, so-
earlier house plan.
I mean, obviously, we'll need to come back to that.
So,
Which
yeah,
is accurate? Is it the same footprint, or is it not the same footprint?
Well, if you look at the survey, take a look at the survey on record, you can see that the new house footprint is overlaid on the existing house footprint, and it's absolutely clear that the new house footprint would be significantly larger than the existing house.
Oh, I see that.
And then also recognize that the new home would be a two-story home, so they'll also benefit by additional living area on the second home.
Right, that I understood, but I was
Remember,
confused by the inconsistent statement about what the footprint changes.
And in fact, if you look at the survey, if you look at the coverage calculations, which are in the lower right-hand portion of the survey, right here, it says the existing house is a footprint of 1,354 square feet. The proposed house has a footprint of 1,674 square feet. It has comparative square footage for the deck. There is some change in the porch as well. But in describing a project, I look to the surveyor's square footage calculations, and those calculations provided by the applicant in order to describe the project. So unless this survey is inaccurate, or unless the plans have changed, yes, the new home and deck would have a significantly larger footprint. What Chapter 325 directs us to do is where the required wetland building and buffer setbacks can't be met, and particularly in a case like this where there's the threat of flooding and there's significant vulnerability to erosion, the Chapter 325 directs you to try and maximize the setbacks of the new structure and to lessen the scale of the new structure in the interest of not significantly increasing the degree of non-conformity of the existing home. The home is a pre-existing non-conforming home. So because of the lot constraints, because of the wetland constraints, the new home would be non-conforming in terms of the required wetland setbacks, but you want to minimize the increase in non-conformity in terms of building coverage and wetland setbacks. The setback of the new deck, whose larger area is achieved both by shifting, a slight shifting of the existing house footprint and by an extension of the deck to the north and south, would only be about a foot further landward of mean high water in the wetlands than the existing deck. There is less concern regarding the expansion of the elevated deck because they're primarily working off the existing footprint and really looking to maximize the deck coverage to the north and south. But there certainly is concern regarding the plans for a larger home, a home with a larger footprint on this property. So consistent with recommendations that my office makes for redevelopment whenever very significant relief is being sought from the required wetland setbacks, and it's of course acknowledged that the need for a great degree of relief is due because of the advancing high tide and the lot size. At the same time, my standard recommendation is that the new home, the footprint of the new home, not exceed or significantly exceed the footprint of the existing home. Why do I make that recommendation? Because if the footprint of the home is not increased, there would be an ability to shift this home and deck a little bit further landward on the property, while yet allowing sufficient area to install the new nitrogen-reducing IAOWTS, which is a requirement as per county law when a residential property is redeveloped. So if you look at the survey, if the footprint of the new home was comparable with the footprint of the existing home, you could almost shift that home further landward to the most easterly edge of the expanded new house footprint. I yet, of course, recognize that this property is yet vulnerable to flooding and erosion, but recognizing those threats, you want to shift that home as far landward as you can. So my first recommendation for this project plan, and my recollection is I made that recommendation in the original advisory report, and I think I made that recommendation when I had some pre-application communications with the landlord, is that the footprint of the new home not exceed the footprint of the existing home. As far as the plans to build a second two-story home as compared to a one-story home, the impacts of that are less if the home is elevated on pilings and if the applicant keeps to the current footprint. So that is the first recommendation that I would make with this application. The second area that requires further discussion, and the applicant spoke generally to this requirement in the wetland permit issuance standards, chapter 325, and that is that the applicant is asked to evaluate practicable alternatives with the goal of coming forward with the least environmentally damaging alternative for the site that would be consistent, generally consistent with the landowner's goals. The landowner, of course, has two goals here. One is to redevelop the property, and the second is to try and stabilize the shorefront to better secure the new elevated home and property, and to try and hold the line in terms of any further advancement, significant advancement of the erosion line. One of the unknowns, of course, here, and that question was raised, but it could only be responded to generally. We're not really in a position to know how far that erosion line on this property would go without any action taken to try and stabilize the property. It would not, typically you have the greatest concern regarding advancing erosion lines when, as a consequence of the changing geology of the area, or as a possible result of a significant storm, there may be a risk of the bay cutting a new inlet through a portion of a barrier strip like this. Unlikely looking at the physiography of this area, that the erosion, if not counteracted, would look to keep cutting in until a second inlet is formed to Woolly Pond. But at the same time, it is somewhat unknown as to how far that erosion line could advance on this property if no action is taken. So because it is an unknown, and because the applicant is looking to build a new home, I well understand the applicant's goal to try and take measures to stabilize the eroding shoreline and the advancement of mean high water to the maximum extent practicable. In looking at this property, the applicant had spoken to the need to, as voiced by state law and by the DEC, to evaluate as a practicable alternative, nature-based solutions that could accomplish the applicant's goals on this property. And while the applicant had spoken briefly to some of the other possible options, and part of the report actually provided a rating of the likely effectiveness of various options in stabilizing the shoreline. And while the applicant also spoke about those options that are highly unlikely to be permitted, that might work, but would be highly unlikely to be permitted by the state. One of those options was a jetty. And I would agree with that it is highly unlikely that jetties would be permitted today in this area. But because our job is, as directed by Chapter 325, is to do a full analysis of all practicable alternatives in rendering a decision as to what the least environmentally damaging alternative is. Before a position is taken that a revetment, a stone revetment, is the only practicable alternative that would achieve the applicant's goals of beach stabilization, there are other nature-based solutions that do warrant further evaluation by the applicant, and I don't believe have been looked at in depth. And one of those options that we've tried successfully at some other locations that were faced with erosion and that were permitted both by the Conservation Board and New York State DEC is to create a rocky shoreline modeled after natural rocky shorelines that you see in certain locations on the South Fork, like Napeague, you see them in Montauk. They're at Plum Island. Martha's Vineyard is another location. As you go further along the northeastern coastline, this rocky shoreline habitat, whether it's along oceanfront or along an estuarine water body like the Peconic Bay, that habitat type becomes a little bit more common. And what I'd like to share with the applicant and also share with this board right now are photos of 3 locations where we had permitted rocky shorelines, which were also permitted by the New York State DEC, that not only involve placing scattered large native boulders of various sizes on the beach, but some of that stone was placed below mean high water. And the first example of that, and there are other examples, is a project that was done at Corwin Lane in Hampton Bays. This is an area that has very significant erosion, and the landowner had initially come forward with a plan to bulkhead the entirety of the property. But I convinced the landowner to go with the nature-based solution, essentially creating a rocky shoreline along at least half of the property. The pursuant to a trustee's permit, the applicant bulkheaded the remaining half of the property. But I'd just like to hand out a couple photos of that site. This is a beach where you get some pretty high wave energy action. Here's a second one. What you're actually seeing in the second photo is the area that was bulkheaded along the remaining shoreline. And here's another photo.
There's some rocks.
Now, my recollection is that this application, when it came forward, which required permits from both the trustees and the Conservation Board, it went through a lengthy public hearing process where I, of course, had made the recommendation that they go with a nature-based solution. I wanted them to go with that solution for the entirety of the property, but essentially they cut the baby in half and went with my recommendation for a nature-based solution consisting of creating a rocky shoreline along half of the shorefront, and the remaining half they went with a bulkhead. And this is a property that even today is well stabilized, and the placement of the boulders of assorted sizes. And if you look at those photos, there are some areas where perhaps there are more boulders that are needed, but the boulders have been very effective.
Did they cause
and-
downdrift impact?
What?
Did they cause downdrift impact?
Well, this is an area where the abutting areas were stabilized years ago by bulkheads or revetments, and then there's an asphalt road end on abutting the property on one side. So no, there was no evidence of any significant downdrift impacts as a result of creating this rocky shoreline at this location. In fact, it not only stabilized the area and preserved the beach, it created habitat. One of the reasons for evaluating practicable alternatives is not only to try and decide which alternative is going to achieve the applicant's goals, yet cause the least environmental damage. You also want to give consideration to alternatives that would benefit the wetlands and enhance the wetlands, particularly in a constrained case where very significant relief is being requested for the purposes of construction at the site. Some of the benefits of creating natural shorelines is what they do is they, because of the way you see the rocks scattered here, and in just a minute I'll share photos of two more locations where rocky shorelines were created and they worked out successfully, is that they dissipate the wave energy in multiple angles when that wave energy comes in. So you don't have a wave energy smacking, you don't have waves smacking against a fixed linear structure. As the water comes in, the angled rock of different sizes detracts that wave energy in different directions, softening breaking up the waves and softening the impacts of the tidal surge. It also, one of the benefits of going with a rocky shoreline where practicable is that it creates a lot of habitat. It creates habitat for algae, seaweeds, invertebrates, rockweed, barnacles, mussels. It creates niches and habitats for crabs, juvenile fish, for other crustaceans. It kind of absorbs. It's better at absorbing wave energy and tidal surges rather than a fixed, even if fixed structure, even if the revetment is angled. It also enhances water quality. One of the great things about attracting mussels and barnacles to an area is they're highly effective at removing nutrients and organic waste from the water. So the boulders become niches or habitats for these marine animals that actually play a very effective role in maintaining and improving water quality. They create a whole ecosystem that becomes an important food web, and because you have seaweeds that attach and algae, they're also effective in sequestering carbon. And today, wherever the opportunities present themselves, we want to see if we can go with solutions that will enhance our resilience to climate change. And carbon sequestration is extremely important. While the revetment, it sounded like the revetment is going to be topped with sand and then I assume planted with beach grass. Even if that sand is not placed in front of the revetment, you're probably going to lose a lot of that sand because it filters through the rocks. You have some wave overwash. There's nothing to hold that sand. So while the applicant may have plans also to beach grass that area, that minimal vegetative cover is not going to, I don't believe, would be as effective as creating this type of intertidal estuarine rocky shore habitat. I indicated there were two other sites that I wanted to share with you. And while the homes on these sites are situated much further landward, and so they were obviously not as vulnerable to erosion as the property that is before us tonight.
Thank you.
These are two abutting residents before Sunset Avenue. Hurricane Irene and Superstorm Sandy had very significant impacts to this area of East Quad. There was significant flooding, there was significant erosion, there was a loss of headland, so I had recommended, the applicants had wanted to bulkhead these properties, build a seawall or build large fixed stone revetments. So, of course, after going through Hurricane Irene and Superstorm Sandy, they were very concerned about future storms and how those storms might impact the property, and felt that they needed to do something to hold the line and firmly stabilize the shoreline. So I had recommended that, and although there was some stone and there was some discarded concrete rubble in the area, I had recommended that They restore the shoreline on this property by bringing in natural boulders of varying sizes and, and scattering those along the shore, both within the water, below mean high water, and at mean high water and above mean high water. And it's been many years, but my recollection was there was a lot of resistance on part of the DEC. The DEC has said these are incompatible or presumptively incompatible activities. You're taking foreign material and you're putting it in tidal wetlands, and we don't see how we can issue a state tidal wetlands permit for this. I had impressed upon them that creating a rocky shoreline in this area would actually enhance the tidal wetland values and benefits, and that it would create habitat. It would stabilize the area well enough so that spartina could grow back in, and so the shorelines could recover well. And this project, which was again permitted by this it was by this board or was through administrative wetland permit, and permitted and finally permitted by the DEC, has been very effective. Yeah, I acknowledge that, the residences were a lot further back, so maybe that was one of the reasons why, in the end, although they initially wanted to bulkhead the area, built massive revetments, that they were amenable to trying a nature-based solution at these properties, but it was extremely effective. So, in summation, as mandated by the wetland permit issuance standards, we are required, and the onus is on the applicant to evaluate a range of alternatives to see whether or not they are practicable, whether or not they would essentially achieve the landowner's desired goals of shore stabilization, and whether or not they would lessen adverse environmental impacts, and whether they would actually enhance the tidal wetlands at the site. So, while ideally you might want to go forward with a project like this that covers a larger area, in the cases that I shared with you, the area of rock was it was a corridor of only approximately 15 feet in width. Because I know one of the major issues with the property before you tonight is they don't have a lot of room to work with. They've got a very narrow beach. When it's high water, it's right up at the residence. So I would ask that before this board renders a decision on whether or not to permit a static fixed rock revetment on this property, that the applicant yet give this nature-based solution, nature-based alternative, creation of a rocky shoreline further study. And I know, the applicant had alluded to the likely DEC resistance to other options here, and that's something that is often heard when we have applications before you for shore stabilization. But at the very least, we can't just stand here and assume that the DEC is not going to be more flexible and would not consider a nature-based solution such as creating a rocky shoreline. I'm sure that all of you have been out at waterfront sites where there are natural rocky shorelines, scattered glacial erratics, and at most of those sites you'll notice where there is a scattering of boulders, and they're mostly glacial erratics on the beach and out into the water, the beach erosion is less, and the beach is better stabilized. So before we close this hearing on this application, I would just ask that the applicant and the landowner give this recommended nature-based solution further study. And one of the pieces of information that we would want to consider is in the event that the New York State DEC is totally unwilling to consider creation of a rocky-based shoreline as a possible alternative here. Well, at the very least, we're going to need something in writing from the DEC, which then would provide an opportunity for this board and my office to communicate with the DEC further, so that we can work towards a final solution. The problem, I fully acknowledge what's going on at this property and the worry on part of the applicant in terms of the advancing erosion and the rapid erosion that occurs after the area is renourished. But the applicant needs to realize that they're asking for very significant relief due to the circumstances from the wetland permit issuance standards. And what Chapter 325 charges us to do, where we're going to entertain granting very significant erosion, to see whether or not there is mitigation that could be offered that will help offset the impacts of the lesser setbacks and mitigate the impacts of the project. Again, not to reiterate my earlier statements, but in addition to the need for the applicant to explore creation of a rocky shoreline as a possible stabilization alternative. Again, I would recommend that the footprint of the new home not exceed the footprint of the existing home. Making that modification to the project plans will allow this home to be shifted further landward, consistent with the directive that was apparently provided by New York State DEC. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Would you turn to figure 6? On figure 6, there are three models, three maps. The third one, schematic, is the label.
Yes.
Would you explain what those two red arrows mean? Then they transfer to orange, and all the while they're getting smaller and change direction.
So these are labeled as sediment gradients. So the way that these wave models work is that they calculate the wave energy in specific portions of a grid. So imagine this whole area as a series of grids. So the wave energy in each little grid is calculated, and that, that wave energy carries with it an ability, an energy level. So the larger the wave, the more energy it has, the more ability it has to move sediment. And so the red arrows are indicating that there's a greater ability of the waves to move sand in that area. And then that energy in each one of these little pixels diminishes as you move to the south. So the potential to move sediment is greatest at the very tip, and then decreases as you move down to a stable point about 900 feet south.
Okay, so that would tend to indicate higher wave action where it's red versus orange?
Yes. And you can see that on the middle graph. You can see where, think of it like the weather map. When you see the yellow and the red, that means it's raining really hard. Well, in this case, it means that the waves are much bigger than in the green and the blue.
It's interesting because if you calculate the fetch for each of those arrows, it's all about the same,
Very similar.
but yet the effects are very different.
And Humeston and Moore concluded has to do with the orientation of the shoreline. So think of it, if the wave is striking the shoreline perpendicular, here's the shoreline and it's hitting it perpendicular, which is pretty much what it's doing here, the ability to move sand one way or the other is greatly diminished. But if you rotate the shoreline and now you're coming in at an angle, your ability to move that sand is much greater. I know people here are people here to speak, so I don't want to hold up their time. I do, Ms. Tempest and I do have some comments to make after the public has had their opportunity.
Okay. We can go to the public now. Yes, yeah.
Good evening, I'm Judy Gallagher, 39 East Beach Drive. My house is next to the north of the Tempestas. There's just a few things I would like to say. One of them is that I think this schematic is so telling. It's exactly what I described at the last meeting. It diminishes, the erosion diminishes. I took a walk down the beach after a nor'easter that we had, and there was actually new sand. I can't say exactly where, but somewhere in this area. Of course, I have very little left to lose. I have nothing up here. But this makes perfect sense to me, perfect sense. And it seems so obvious that, the erosion and the wave action is so much stronger here. And then it diminishes. I mean, that to me really makes a lot of sense. I would also like to say that maybe the Tempestas have not, tried everything else, but I have, the Gallaghers have. You probably know, it's a few years that we came before this board. I think Marty would attest to the fact that Brian and I, my husband, we would bring suggestions to him, several. One was a straight row of rocks, another was a scattered row of rocks, another was actually a groin a temporary groin that you fill with sand. It's like a tube. You fill it with sand, it does go straight out. And if it doesn't work, you simply cut it and the sand just flops into the bay. We've tried so many things and we have been denied every time. So I just want to say that yes, there are other things that have done. I've been to Rawson Estates. I've been to places that Marty has sent us to, Hampton Bays, to look at, different things. But you don't want my husband to come here with his paperwork because it goes back to the 80s. And he did as much research as he possibly could to see if there was another way besides a revetment. I also want to say that I feel that if a revetment is permitted, the onus is on the people who live there to fill in the sand. Yes, the sand is going to go in between the rocks. In a bad storm, you're going to lose sand. But at least when you replenish it, it's going to stay for a while. I also want to say that, all due respect, Aram is being very generous about 2 to 3 years newly dredged sand staying there. I think the Tempested would agree with me. I would say it's not even a year, but it doesn't stay for 3 years. I wish it did. It would be good for us. And I guess that's what I have to say for now. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is John Petrillo. Along with my wife, I own the house at 31 East Beach Drive, which is downdrift 2 houses from the proposed house. There are 5 reasons why you should never consider a revetment on East Beach Drive. The first is, from my point of view, very selfish, and that's a revetment 2 houses up from me will cause increased beach erosion to my property. I have a small amount of beach now, not very much, more than the Tempestas have. That'll be gone if there is a revetment allowed by this board. And then the beach that I have treasured will no longer be around. More important than my own selfish interest is the interest of the beach itself. If the Tempestas have a revetment, then I'm sure the Gallagher's and other houses will have revetments also. That will cause a domino effect, which will move its way down the beach, so that instead of having the most pristine, beautiful beach imaginable, we will have 2-ton rocks staring at us. The domino effect is the second reason why you should not allow a revetment on the beach in Southampton. The third, it'll permanently and irreversibly transform our beautiful beach into a very ugly beach. Fourth, it'll damage the environment. And fifth, it will be a barrier to beachcombers, people that like to walk along the beach. When I was a boy, we could walk all the way along the beach and around the point. A bulkhead was built, prevented us from walking. Another bulkhead was built, prevented us from walking. As revetments are stacked one after the other further south, there'll be no longer a beach available for beachcombers to walk their dogs or walk their children, and that would be a crime. On the chart over here, it was pointed out that there's an area of stability and instability of the sand. The reason why there is instability here has to do with the permanent structures that were built, which prevented the natural ebb and flow of the sand. If you make more permanent structures, then the area of erosion is just going to shift further down the beach. And that'll encourage more and more requests for the board for further revetments. We were asked for evidence rather than just an opinion. The last time we were here, I submitted an article, and I'd like to once again resubmit that article. It's on the record. The article is called Shoreline Management on Long Island. It's New York Department of State Sea Grant. It's authored by Kathleen Phelan, PhD, Coastal Processes and Hazard Specialist. This is on the record. I'll submit it one more time so it can be on the record.
It's not necessary to do it again.
Yes?
It's not necessary to submit it a second time.
That was submitted for a different application.
No, it was the last, it was for the same
That was submitted for
application.
this application?
Yes,
Well, could you submit a copy for the record again?
I will.
Just to
I'll be
make sure
very
we
happy.
have it, because
I'm going to just
I
read
haven't seen that in
one
the
paragraph
file.
about revetments. Revetments, the rocks reflect the wave action and reduce the impact on the land directly behind it. However, these structures can increase erosion rates at adjacent lands. That's me, adjacent lands. Typically, the neighboring properties, once again, me, will either need to continue the hard structure. By continuing the hard structure, that means the domino effect. Will either need to continue the hard structure or maintain their shoreline at more frequent intervals. So I will submit this once again. Again, this is by Kathleen Phelan, PhD, Coastal Processes and Hazard Specialist. Evidence. It's not worth the risk to our beach. That's it in a nutshell. We love our beach. We're all there because of the beautiful beach. We don't want to sacrifice it to a pile of rocks. Thank you.
Sir, I hear you.
Yes.
Don't misunderstand my question. I'm just wondering if you might offer a suggestion.
I would.
to the
I have several
Tempest.
suggestions. First of all, I think the size of the house has to be proportionate to the land that they own. Shouldn't be increasing in space. It should be moved further towards inland than it is now. There should be no revetment at all. If the property is smaller, it will require a smaller septic system, which takes up less space on the land side of the house. Those are my suggestions. When I bought my property 4 or 5 years ago, I knew what I was buying. I knew that there was an erosion problem, and I was prepared to live with that. And I think that the investors, when they bought their property, they also understood that. If you check the aerial photographs from 2002 with that of 2005, they're not much different. In between those two photographs, new sand was deposited and nature took its course and that new sand was eroded. But when they bought their house, the shoreline was not much different than it is right now. They knew what they were buying. when they bought the house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mary Topping. I own property in Southampton Shores, and I have spent most of my summers and weekends and now permanently in Southampton Shores and on the beach. Also in Willie's Pond and out the inlet. Have seen for many, many years my little boat going out and had a horse. I used to ride the horse all the way from the inlet all the way to Town Point, unobstructed by barriers, rocks, revetments, or anything of the sort of that nature. As youngsters growing up in Southampton Shores, we spent lots of time along the shoreline, and the elephant in the room that no one has seemed to mention is this, the bulkhead at the end of East Beach Drive. I mean, if we all could pool our money together and buy the Rubens house and get rid of the bulkhead, we wouldn't have a problem. The shoreline would be restored. We spent a lot of time on East Beach Drive as kids. It was marsh, it was fiddler crabs, it was fish flopping around, mussels all in that swamp area. That area with the holes from the fiddler crabs absorbed much of that wave action. We didn't have that carving out. It didn't happen. As soon as that bulkhead went in, it started to carve out. We no longer could go that direction. The beach and that bog withstood a number of hurricanes. I personally witnessed ones in the 50s, the 60s. When we were in school, in the wintertime, I was in Freeport. If there was a hurricane, my dad said, get in the car, we're going to Southampton, got to pull boats, we got to do this, we got to do that. We had Hurricane Carol, Donna, Agnes, Belle, Gloria. We had houses that lost shingles, shutters, boats washed up. But the beach survived and it replenished itself. Why? Because there were no revetments. My dad was the president of the community, who's Warner Emerson, and withstood it for a number of years, I think 26 years. And he and a number of other members of the community fought very hard to not allow that house, and which was on filled land, obviously, and the bulkhead to be built. Unfortunately, the members of the board, not you guys, but a previous board, never went out there. Like you went out there today or yesterday, they never went out there. They never looked at the situation. He told me that. So did other members of his, friends of his at the time. The bulkhead was installed, and it has created a problem ever since. It also has denied me, my kids, everybody else, access to that area. I mean, that was a place when you were 14, you went for a smoke, you know? Go to the point. As a result of the hardened shoreline, the waves are no longer absorbed. We all know that. We can see what's happened. Instead, it pulls the bay, it pulls that sand out, and it moves it down the beach. Yes, it does that. I know that. If I were able to buy a piece of property on that East Beach, I wouldn't do it. I mean, you know, it's a great piece of property, but I wouldn't buy it, just like I wouldn't buy next to an airport. If more revetments are allowed, it's just going to move on down the beach, like John said, domino effect. If you take a boat, and if you don't have a boat in there, give me a call. I'll take you out Willie's Pond, go to the right, bulkhead, 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 all the way, practically from Jessup's all the way to Willie's Pond. And a couple of places where there is no bulkhead, it's carved out. It looks like just somebody came in with an ice cream scoop and took it right out. So, you know, if you've been around a while and you've spent some time on the bay, which I know all of you have, you can see what's happening. It's not rocket science. You can go to rocket science and do all kinds of stuff, but it's the revetments, it's the hardening of the shoreline, which ruins the beach and ruins the natural flow going back and forth. Not only that, but, you know, as a member of that community, we have a right-of-way right close to where John and Vicky's house is in the Tempestas. If there's a revetment there, we're gonna lose that. If there's a revetment there and everybody down East Beach Drive continues putting revetments up, we lose the Colony Club Pavilion area, the swimming area. If you again go out in the bay, and you don't even have to go out in the bay, go to North Sea Beach Colony. Get out, walk down the beach, it's all wall. They don't have a beach, go down the steps. One of those steps washed out onto Peconic Bay Beach in this last storm. It's just, it's a mess. My children have grown up here, they love the beaches, they love the Peconics as I do. My daughter majored in environmental science at the college. My son did as well, and he's currently the Peconic Bay keeper. He knows the situation as well. Their children relish the opportunity to go down the beach, and they pick up those little green tiles. I don't know if you've ever walked on Peconic Bay Beach. There used to be a beach club up on North Sea Beach Colony, and when that was destroyed, all those little green tiles from their swimming pool or whatever it was, every so often you get really lucky. My granddaughter's 6, she has a whole jar of them already. I just am vehemently opposed to any kind of a revetment along that beach. If there's another solution, so be it, but I would ask you to really look at it very closely. Go out the channel. If you need a ride, give me a call, I'll take you out, go to the right, you'll see what's happened. Bulkhead, no beach, and then they're in the water. Thank you.
Is there someone else who'd like to speak?
I just wanted, Irene Petrillo, 25 East Beach Drive. I just want to say I agree with my friends and neighbors that I don't want to see any hardened structure because it will affect the houses down the beach. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
No one.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Laura Bergman, 21 East Beach Drive. And I just want to say I agree with what my neighbors, my family have said. I had tons of points to make, and they made every one of them, so thank you.
Thank you.
So, Aaron, we need to plot the next part of the course.
Yep.
Before we plot our next meeting, I'd like to ask the board's indulgence. Ms. Tempesta has a couple of points she'd like to make. I have some very brief points and some agreement, so stick around, okay? Do that.
We're not going anywhere.
So I'll let Aram handle the technical aspects, but I just wanted to get up here one more time to address a couple of points made by Marty and also by my wonderful, loving neighbors. So with respect to the size of the home, as you may have noticed, Aram and I didn't speak about that at all today because the priority is protecting the property. Yes, we want to build a home, and we're going to get there, right? We are flexible on the footprint, but this is where we want to live the rest of our lives. It's currently a cottage, and my neighbors, including Mr. Petrillo, have very large homes. So you might ask, why would they ask for us to have a very small, relatively small home as compared with them? It just seems a little bit odd. I don't have the answer to that question. I will say it seems a little weird to suggest that I think what the suggestion is to wait for dredging, reapply, and then we could build a bigger home. That seems to be putting form over substance. Because if the town dredges, we have a bunch of sand, we put in a new survey, that's when the bigger house would get approved. That's what happened with Mr. Petrillo, if you look at the records. He increased the size of his deck significantly as soon as the dredging was completed because he now had more land. So if the suggestion is, Mr. and Mrs. Tempesta, wait to build the house until the dredging is done, Like I said, that just seems to be putting form over substance. If that's something you want us to think about, I suppose we can, but that doesn't solve the erosion problem. And we don't know when the dredging is gonna happen next. It just is quite honestly aggravating to hear the discussion about the size of the home. You should go down the block and see the the size of our neighbors' houses. They're enormous. So I don't understand this.
Jennifer,
And the
I-
fact that Mr. Petrillo came up here and told me to build a smaller house, I find to be personally offensive.
Just a couple of things. We have not said to wait for the dredging. I think it's been well established, the dredging is not the solution. It is well established that the sand is not going to stay here. Every time it gets dredged, every time it moves, and it gets put back and it moves. I would like to find a solution. I would like to address the problem. I don't like the idea of just putting Band-Aids on it that's going to require more and more maintenance. And what I see is, the problem is, the water's moving too fast. I think there are some solutions to slow it down. We don't have sole authority over that, and that's a problem too. So I am confident there are some solutions. The question is if we are able to accomplish them. But there's been an awful lot of testimony here. I think it's phenomenal how much knowledge can be accumulated with these engineers that Aaron has presented that have figured all these things out. We have so much more information to work on now than we ever had. It would be nice to use it to advantage.
And my question to you is, what's the next step for us to proceed? And I will echo one thing that Mrs. Gallagher said, which is she's heard suggestions from Marty Shea. We've been at some of their hearings where suggestions were made, but then never approved. So there was an idea for this, an idea for that, an idea for something else, and years pass. And then the applicant gets discouraged. I can assure you we're not going to get discouraged. This is where we want to live. But we don't want to be in a place where we explore this rocky shoreline and we come back with a plan for that, and then Marty says, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. So I think, we respectfully would like to be in a place where if there is a alternative solution that's proposed, that it's not then pulled out from, in the next meeting to say, wait a minute, actually, we want you to do something else. And by the time that is to occur, because it will take planning and changing of our engineering drawings and meeting with the whoever, whatever engineers we need to meet with, by that point, my tree is fallen over and the water is a foot closer to my house. So I apologize for voicing my frustration, but it just seems that there is not a solution that is going to be found in the near term. And when I just hear opposition and seeking to go back to the 1960s where there was a pristine beach, I don't think that's helping the situation. There is not a beach today. We would not be blocking any right-of-way. You cannot walk past my house during high tide. That's nature, not me. I'm not preventing anyone from going past my house. The erosion has done that. So I think that's really all I have to say, but I would just reiterate that the house size is secondary in our view. We really want to come to a solution to saving the property before it's gone. And then we can talk about the footprint, we can negotiate that moving forward. If there is bargaining to be had here, if the proposition is you have to keep the footprint the same, but we will approve a revetment, I can certainly take that back to my family and discuss it. But if the two are not tied together from your perspective, our priority is to figure out how to stop the erosion before the property is taken over by water.
I think that we have the same goal as Harry alluded to very succinctly, is that he is not necessarily focusing on one particular spot. He's looking for a more global solution that would benefit you as well as your neighbors down drift. And one of the things that we've thought about is that maybe Aram could help us with that. You know, we certainly would love to come up with a solution to that. And hopefully, Aram can come up with something that we might be able to work with.
And I completely agree.
I understand your frustration. Please don't apologize for that. It's a very difficult situation to address. We were out there today, and, you know, my last thing that I said is I looked down the beach, and I said, my God, what a beautiful beach down there. But look, there's no bulkheads, there's no revetments, there's nothing, but there's a beautiful beach down there, and we would like to preserve that. So we're looking for something a little bit more, you know, something to solve the entire situation that would be helpful to you as well as your downdrift neighbors.
Respectfully, I don't see a solution to the entire block that everyone will be able to agree on probably in my lifetime. As you can see, everyone has different views, and I do not think that the neighbors would agree on a global solution that everyone would have to contribute monetarily to.
You never know until you try something like that, but that's a good point, okay? It's a good point, but you don't know until you try it. And as I said, we have to come up with a solution first, and hopefully Aram can help us out with that.
Are you suggesting that a global solution is the only way to go here? Because I just don't think that's feasible, to be completely honest.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The global solution you referred to, is that what you're proposing to be the next step? Because I don't see that as being.
No, I'm not necessarily proposing that. I'm proposing a very general look at the situation to try and solve the entire problem, not just specifically is what I'm getting at. So I don't know if you can appreciate that.
Understood. Are there any other questions for me before I turn it over to Aram?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
You can say what you want to say. I have a question for you also.
Fire away.
Judy testified at an earlier hearing that most of that sand disappeared in 6 months. So 2 years is liberal time. Now, but just take 2 years for the sake of argument here. So the sand that was deposited there in 2022 was essentially gone in 2024, and now we're in 2026. At that same rate, her house should be gone.
Correct,
It didn't continue at the same rate.
correct.
Why not?
It does continue. I think that's the most important thing. The erosion rate is definitely slowed down, and it's slowed down because of all these things we've been talking about. But it is still eroding. And if you went there last year and looked at it, you would notice they've lost about 5 or 8 feet. Next year, they're probably going to lose about the same. So, and these, when I'm talking about other projects and I'm talking about 5 feet of erosion per year, that's a lot. 40 feet of erosion per year, I mean, you just don't see it. The only place you see that is at Shinnecock Inlet. So, yeah, it's normal that as the sand that was placed out in that area, because you remember, if you look at which one? This aerial photo right here. This is the sand. It's like 16,000 yards of sand. But you can see they pushed the whole shoreline out. So when you do that to a shoreline, you push it out like that, it's going to erode much, much faster until it gets back to where it was to start with, and then it's going to start eroding at that rate. So, you know, Marty said it's unknown as to how much it's going to erode. Yeah, we don't, but we sure know it's going to erode.
I think of the sand that erodes to fill in Willie Inlet. What erodes tends to be the finer particles. That's what always goes first. In any aggregate, it's the smaller ones that move. So it tends to be the finer particles that get dredged and get deposited. So we've got a more erodible aggregate to start with.
That's correct.
So it would be expected that that rate of erosion would be highest early on. And then it does taper back. My personal feeling is, I think that, going out on a limb here, because Marty's the one who's most capable of doing that. One of the problems that we seem to be facing is we are restricted by the permitting by the DEC. You've indicated how they're not particularly flexible. I would like to see us pursue that essentially one last time. And it might be, it has to be done from this side of the table. I don't know the process for that. Marty might have something to say about that, or it might squash it. But if we had more flexibility in working lower than the water line, or somehow to do activities lower than the water line, I think there could be a lot more options on the table that could be beneficial to everybody. I'd hate to pass that up, because I am also confident that if we approve a rock revetment on this property, it is only a matter of time before there is zero beach. And I am concerned about what happens down drift. I do recognize what you're saying, and I don't think that the neighbors 4 or 6 houses down will be affected right away. But I think they will be affected after another 10, 20, 50, I don't know how many years. But the same dynamic is happening, it's just a lower rate. And when there's no more sand to accrete in those areas, I fear that they may start to erode. We want to be very careful about doing something on this property that's going to affect any other property in a negative way. And I also wonder if there is a aggregate size rock that would show a high level of resistance to erosion. And if there could be a beach made of that rock, and if that would be acceptable to the homeowners, and if it would have some function. And if it does mean having all the homeowners participate in something, we certainly can't require that, absolutely not. But if they are interested, and it could work, I just don't want to leave any stone unturned, because what we do here can have lasting impacts. We have to be careful in what we do.
I took a lot of notes. Let me respond to that and then tell you what I had planned on saying. First thing I say is, you know, you give me 500 feet of shoreline and a healthy budget, I'll fix this beach, and you won't have to worry about it again. But they're the ones who are going to have to pay for it. Okay? And I've done a bunch of these projects, as you know. One of our best projects is North Sea Beach Colony. If you went there in 2018, there was no beach. There was no beach. The waves are breaking against the bulkhead. Go there today. There's 25 to 30 feet of beach in front of there. And guess what? Next year, it's going to get bigger. Why? Because we're managing the sediment from North Sea Harbor Inlet. Right here. See that sediment right there? North Sea Beach Colony is just up here. It's about a quarter mile away. The county dredges that channel. We pick up the sand, they dredge, they drop it right here on Mr. Druckenmiller's property. We have an agreement with him. We pick up 50% of that material and we truck it up to North Sea Colony every other year. We've been doing that since 2018. They have a beach. Why? Because we know what the sediment budget is. we did our homework, and we have a routine. Can we do that here? Absolutely. But I don't have any of that. I've got a 60-foot parcel. And what's in front of us is, how do we treat this 60-foot parcel with something that's actually going to work in a way that has the minimal, if any, impact on the environment and the neighbors? I submit to you, that's what we've already done. But we will go further because I have some ideas. I'm not as creative as Member Hine thinks I am, but I'll do my best.
I have faith in you, Aaron.
I want to just make a couple of points. The first one is, we're going to go look at 22 Corwin, and we're going to go look at 62 Sunset, and I'm going to tell you what they look like today. But I would point out the following, and you'll see them in the photos. In both of those situations, the buildings are either 100 or hundreds of feet away. We're 10. We're 10 feet away. We don't have that kind of luxury. But nevertheless, I will go there, I will photograph them, I will measure them, and I will bring that information back to this board. And then you will evaluate it. But regardless of what that information has in it, it's not appropriate for this site. We've got 10 feet. We can't fail. We can't fail because then the house fails, the sanitary fails, everything fails. That's the challenge that the client puts to me. You have to deliver for me something that is actually going to work. Not just a good idea, not that sounds good because New York State said nature-based solutions are preferred, but the thing that actually functions. We already have a rocky shoreline. That's why I brought this photo. The two members were there today. You saw it. It's a rocky shoreline. But directly to your point, it's the wrong size rock. Could I build a cobbled beach on 500 feet of beach that will be stable for X period of time? Absolutely. Can I do that on a 60-foot wide parcel? No, I cannot. No one can. It's physically impossible to stabilize a 60-foot wide parcel with a cobbled beach. Simply cannot function because it's sticking out, just like that sand I showed you, and nature just goes after it. In order for a restoration project of that type to be successful, you have to have critical mass. And that critical mass is based upon the length and the depth. And the length of the shoreline doubles the lifetime of the project. When we built Sagaponack in Bridgehampton, we've got 6 miles of beach. It lasted 10 years. Why? Because that's the way we designed it, because we had 6 miles of beach. I can't do that on 63 feet of Peconic Bayfront. No one can do that. This situation is not natural. We've heard tonight nature-based solutions. We've heard natural ebb and flow. We've heard the beach will naturally restore itself. No, it won't. It's pretty clear that this inlet is so messed up that no amount of nature is going to fix it. We've got to fix the legacy problem that we created, and we've got to fix it in a way with the least amount of impact to all parties. The other thing is, there's no decrease in access with our proposal, right? You were there today. You walk off the deck, and within 2 steps, you're below the high water line, okay? There's the high water lines right there. High water, right where that tree is, that's your high water line. Well, we're gonna build behind that. All this that you're looking at right here, everything you're looking at right here that everybody walks on today, they can still walk on that tomorrow. Nobody's walking above this tree onto the deck of the Tempestus. So the issue that somehow this is going to eliminate access along the beach simply doesn't fly. The access that exists today will exist tomorrow. One of the benefits of this rocky shoreline is it's real hard to erode. So typically you'd say, oh, you have a sandy beach, you have a rock revetment, it's going to scour the beach sand away. Well, this is very, much more stable than sand. It's going to stick around a lot longer. So to conclude, you want us to look at a rocky beach? I'll look at a rocky beach. I'll look at the ones that Marty brought up, and I'll bring them back to you. I'll just point out, look at those photos that he gave you on 22 Corwin, and look at the size of the rocks in there. I'm going to go measure them, but I'll tell you right now, they're 2 to 3 feet. Well, that's the same size rock we're talking about. Look at our drawing. It's 2 to 3 feet. We're talking about the same rock. That's really all I have.
If you're gonna build a cobble beach across, I don't know, all those 3 houses, what size cobble would it take approximately?
Cobble by definition is between softball size and basketball size. So the precise mix of that, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's going to be in there.
Kind of hard to walk across.
Yeah. Well, the cobble size, the softball size one's not so bad if you're wearing shoes. I don't know about the basketball size ones.
Any guesstimate what it would cost?
For
For all 3 houses?
No, but I can do that.
To the nearest zero?
Or to at least 3 significant places.
No, I mean, is it like, how many digits?
Oh, yeah. For that, you're in hundreds of thousands.
Like 200,000.
This stone doesn't come from Long Island, or they closed all the quarries. We have to go either upstate New York or Connecticut to get the rock, truck it across the Throgs Neck Bridge.
Yikes.
Yeah, a lot of logistics involved.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to bring back some of those figures to us the next time.
Yeah.
If in fact you did something like that, could you leave spaces for people to enter and leave the water without it making it ineffective?
No, but you could do walkways over. We do that all the time.
Okay.
Nature, water finds the lowest level, and it's unforgiving.
Yes.
And if you did put a rock revetment in, how deep would it go? I'm sure you've submitted that.
It's like, I feel like -3. The other thing that we could do here, and this kind of just occurred to me, sorry, Jennifer, I didn't tell you about this because I just thought about it, is that we could build a cobble berm on top of the revetment. Again, think about this. 0 failure. We don't have any room to give here. We're talking typical, quintessential rock in a hard place. But we can build a cobble berm over top. I'm gonna include that as an option. Can we have a hearing in 2 weeks?
We definitely can't. Thank you for looking.
Is there any hope in talking to the DEC?
Yeah, there's always, yes, that could be very productive.
Optimistic, be optimistic.
Listen, I I've met with them about a month ago. We actually resolved 2 projects, so I'm always willing to talk, you know that. My charge from both sides is I gotta build a project that works, and it's gotta be environmentally friendly, okay? That's my charge. The old expression, there comes a time where there's no more time for good ideas. We're real close if we're not there already. So although I definitely am willing to engage with the DEC, I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time dancing around unrealistic options.
Aaron, which DEC analyst has been assigned to this project? That would be helpful to me.
Well, instead of fumbling through that, I'll just email you in the morning.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
When should we come back?
I figured.
2 weeks doesn't work, but any other time is all right. We have a couple on each meeting in May.
May 13th is probably the earliest.
That's early to get an ear from the DEC, May 13th.
I'm sorry, the applicant is going to take that initiative, right? But
Well,
I can't, I'm not in any position to tell you right now whether or not if I reach out to the DEC, they're going to respond within a certain period of time.
yeah, I know,
I don't.
I know.
Yeah, but I would beg this board that not to predicate anything it does on waiting for the DEC. It took me 3 months to arrange the last meeting.
Exactly, I agree.
Well, listen,
So
schedule me as early as you can. I will make the effort and loop, Marty in, and if we have a conversation, we'll relay it to you. If we don't, we won't.
Okay, May 13th.
Motion to adjourn to May 13th unless there's anybody else that wants to speak.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you for your time tonight.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
And we're at the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
You want papers?
Oh, yeah, you got them. Anybody else?
Second, all in
You
favor
wanna
to
hold on
adjourn?
to them, Mark?
Anybody opposed to adjourning? We stand adjourned.